Hey guys, what's up? It's the new sensation, Big O Notation here, and today I'm going to be bringing you the final best of 3 match in my recent local tournament, in which I took a viewer suggested deck, specifically the ultimate deck Towa, that I profiled I think about a week ago now, and I took that deck to my local tournament and I managed to do pretty well with it. So I'll be doing the commentary on the best of 3 during this video. Couple of things to go over just before we get started. First of all, check out all the links in the description if you want to stay updated with all my content. I've been doing Twitch streaming pretty regularly now, from Monday to Thursday at around 4 PM. So if you want to tune in on any of those and check me out live, interact with me live, definitely give those a follow. I'm almost at 50 followers on Twitch now, so definitely help me out there, and I'll try and do something similar to the 50 subscriber thing that I did. Also, if you want to suggest more Dragon Ball Super decks for me to play, I'll have the link to that video in the description where you can comment your suggestions, and I'll make a deck profile on it and then take it to a local tournament and see how well I can do with it. It can be any idea you want. It can be like really bad, it can be just something a little bit fun, or it can be a deck that you're actually interested for me to see me try out. Also, because I have exams this month, I'm coming to the end of my mandatory education. I'm afraid that some of the content that I want to produce for this month will probably be coming out quite a lot later, because I want to be focusing on my exams, so I'm not going to have enough free time to make as much content as I usually do, so apologies for that. But hopefully after this month, because of the holidays, I'll have a lot more time to dedicate to this channel and to my Twitch streaming as well. So as long as you guys can stay with me for this month, then hopefully there'll be a lot more stuff to come after this month, and I'll have a lot more good content to bring to you guys. So enough of me rambling, let's get right into the gameplay. As you can see here, again, sorry for the quality, I'm still figuring out a bunch of stuff for recording. I'm actually building a new PC, which will hopefully be done in the next few months, and hopefully then I'll also have some better quality. So basically, after this month, once I've done my exams, everything will be a lot better for this channel and for the Twitch streams. But as you can see, hopefully, I'm against the Green Gotenks deck, and so immediately things I'm thinking of are, if most of his removal is going to be coming from the 6-drop fusion from the Gotenks, and luckily that will trigger the additional effects of my 9-drop Lord Slug. So if I can bring out the 9-drop and 2-drop Lord Slug chain on turn 2, then that should be pretty safe. I want to be blocking as early as I can with those, so if he swings with his leader on turn 2 before bringing out the 6-drop Gotenks, I want to be blocking his leader swing so that I can get maximum value out of the blockers before he kills it with the 6-drop Gotenks. But I'll also get the secondary effects of the Lord Slug 9-drop from if he kills it with the Gotenks, so that's pretty good. And basically I don't massively have to worry about his main threat, because the main threat against Green Gotenks is obviously the 6-drop, and if he's killing my 9-drop Lord Slug with the 6-drop, then I can just immediately kill his 6-drop straight back and remove 2 markers from his unison and discard a card from his hand. So here we've got a pretty standard start from both players. I managed to draw my Towa, which is the perfect turn 1 play for this deck, and he's got his Goku out. So I have a few options this turn actually. I opt to charge a Dark Dragon Balls because I already have another one in hand and you can only play 1 per turn. And I'm deciding to keep the 6-drop Janemba in hand rather than charge it for the blue energy, because if I can see another blue energy by turn 3, I'd rather charge that, because the 6-drop Janemba is only a one-off and it applies a lot of pressure in this deck. It is often the way that you're killing your opponent if you can draw into it. So here I search out the Freezer, and then I opt to play the 2-drop Freezer for 1 energy because it's reduced from my leader effect. And the reason behind that is because I can now attack his Goku, because he has 7 cards in his hand, and he's either going to have to spend 3 cards to combo out of the attack, or he's going to lose his Goku and a card in his hand, which is great for me, because if you can kill the Goku on turn 1 against this Green Gotenks deck, then they lose a lot of their main advantage, because it means they can't do their search the next turn. So I'm just attacking into his Goku, and then I decide to take the life from the Freezer effect because I'm only at 7 life and I want to be awakening next turn if possible. So then he discards a copy of Rosie, and I swing at his leader with my leader just to get another life to my hand and to draw another card. Here I'm thinking about playing down the 2-drop Lord Slug, and I choose to do it. I think that this was a slight misplay. The thought process behind it was that he's probably just going to be dropping the Unison next turn, because against Green Gotenks their deck is pretty linear, so you know that on turn 1 they're going to be using Gokul, on turn 2 they're probably going to want to drop their Unison, and then turn 3 they're going to start hitting you with the big 6-drops. So I was thinking he's probably just going to drop his Unison this turn, but what I didn't consider was that if he does drop his 6-drop, if he's already managed to get the pieces in hand even without the Gokul, and he drops his 6-drop, then I'll be losing out on my Lord Slug chain, and I don't have another copy of the Lord Slug in my hand. So I think that was a slight misplay on my part, but at this point I was feeling pretty good about it, because I was thinking I'm already really ahead. I just wanted to push tempo and be as energy efficient as possible whilst I was this ahead. And he is actually unable to play anything this turn, which really surprises me. Turn 2, often Gotenks has quite a few plays, being the 6-drop or the obviously the Unison is their standard play, but also playing down the 6-drop if they have the pieces, or just they have a bunch of ways to search out all of their pieces, so I was surprised he didn't have any of those, especially with an 8-card hand, which is pretty large. So here I'm just using my Towa effect, and I was considering dropping down the Majin Buu here, but I figured I definitely want to get down a copy of Janemba here, because he has no battle cards that he can choose to walk on his board, and I want to be pressuring with a crit attacker on the first swing, because then when he uses Dormant Potential like he does here, he's going to still be taking a crit attack, and so that's going to mean that he's losing effectively 3 cards off of this exchange, and I get to draw a card and untap 1 off of my Janemba effect. And here he opts to kill my 2-drop Lord Slug with the Dormant Potential, which I think was a misplay from him. I think this was one of his first times playing against the Ultimate Towa deck, so he didn't really know what it did. And obviously killing the 2-drop Lord Slug is not the best play, because it just lets me bring out my 9-drop, and he could have just as easily killed my Freezer or my Towa, which are both on the board right now, and would have both been fine targets for the Dormant Potential, so I think that was a big misplay on his part. But my Janemba then untaps the blue energy, and that potentially could let me go into the 6-drop Janemba here, but because he's played Dormant Potential, I don't really want to, because I'm not going to get the full use of the 6-drops dual attack crit or anything like that. So I think what I end up doing is just burning the other swing on my leader, and that is because it will get me a draw, and I managed to draw into Senzu-Bean, which is great. And I have a really good hand here, I have a really strong hand, and I have a lot of options for my next turn. Basically, the game plan against green decks as a whole is obviously all green decks, or almost all green decks, are going to have at least 3, if not 4 copies of Dormant Potential. So the idea is that you want to swing with a big value attacker first, so that it goes through, even if they drop the Dormant Potential. And it also puts them in a bit of a tricky situation, because if you swing with a big value attacker like the 20k crit Janemba like I did here, then they would ideally want to negate that attack, but because Dormant Potential doesn't negate the attack, but they ideally want to be playing it as their first negate in the turn, it puts them in a really tricky situation of either they have to take the big attack and limit me to only 1 more attack that turn, or they just use like a shocking death ball or something to negate the attack, but then I have 2 more attacks for the rest of the turn. So it can put them in a really tricky situation, and that's just something really important to bear in mind when you're playing against green at all, not even in Ultimate Towa, just generally if you're playing against green, playing around Dormant Potential is really important, and that's how you want to be doing it. So here he just swings with his leader, and I choose to block it because I know that, like I mentioned earlier, if he can bring out the 6-drop, he's probably going to kill my 9-drop, so that he can put on some pressure. And I want to be making the most of my double blocker before he drops down the 6-drop. So here he plays down his 6-drop, and he ends up actually choosing to kill my Freezer, which I found very strange, because either the 4-drop Janemba or the 9-drop Lord Slug would have been, I think, better targets for me. Or not for me, for him to have chosen. me losing the 2-drop freezer is absolutely fine because it's only a 15k, and I have another copy in hand, and because it has unique, I can't have 2 copies on the board, so it doesn't really do anything against me. And then here I choose to just use the 9-drop Lord Slug as a 10k combo from my hand to save my Janemba, and he chooses not to swing with a second time with his Gotenks, which I also found very strange. I think that was another misplay from him. Though the Gotenks doesn't have blocker or any abilities like that, so there was pretty much no downside to him swinging a second time with his Gotenks, and I don't really know why he didn't do that. So a decision that I made in the last turn was not to awaken even though I was at 4 life, and my reasoning behind that is because I valued the untap from the awaken ability very, very highly, and I knew that he wouldn't be able to put a massive amount of pressure on my leader during his turn, which he only dropped the 6-drop in, so I figured I might as well just save the awaken for a more explosive turn where he can't play dormant potential, or where he is maybe not in a position to play dormant potential, and then I know that I can really put on a load of pressure against him using that extra energy, because 1 energy goes a long way in this deck because of the fact that I run Senzu Beans, I run the 6-drop Janemba, I run the Towa effect, the TP Towa that comes out in set 13, I think, that brings out Dark Broly's from the deck. So 1 energy can really go a long way in this deck, and that's why I opted to save my Awaken skill. So here I'm just tapping 3 for my Lord Slug, making the most of my energy as soon as I can. And I think that here I should have probably just played down my Majin Buu, honestly, and tried to bring out some stuff from the deck. But I figured that because of my double bean and because of the fact that I have the leader awaken, I can definitely play down the Majin Buu later in the turn anyway. And so I think my reasoning behind this was that I wanted to clear off his battle card from the board so that I guarantee my Janemba's second effect on the attack, and it will also allow me to play down the surprise attack freezer. What was going on there, by the way, was I think he thought that he got an effect when his one of his battle cards was returned to his hand, and that was from the 6-drop Gotenks, but we went over that, and that's not how the card worked. It was an activate main, not an auto, so he got that slightly wrong, and because of how long that ruling ended up taking, I just forgot to play down my surprise attack freezer, which I realized here. But here I did the same thing again, where I'm swinging with my big value attack of the 20k crit, because if he's dropping dormant potential early, or on that attack even, then it's bad for him because he's losing 3 cards in total. But if he's dropping Shocking Death Ball, which he ends up using, I'm gonna be able to attack a lot more throughout the rest of the turn. And he actually uses the energy for the Shocking Death Ball, so I know that because he doesn't have a Unison out currently, he's not going to be able to dormant potential me for quite a while, unless he opts to awaken and untap the energy. So here I'm just applying as much pressure as possible, swinging with everything I can. I drop down my 6-drop Janemba, and I managed to draw into a Man on the Mission, which is insane. So now I have Cell Xeno potentially, I also have Man on a Mission as an option, and I can also drop down a Majin Buu once I use the 3 Senzu Beans that I have in my hand. So this turn I'm going to be going really, really explosive, probably. And here I'm just swinging with my leader to draw a card and apply even more pressure. He uses his Jiro super combo, and that puts his Ribrianne to the bottom of the deck. And oh yeah, I think he accidentally put the Jiro into his life because of the untap hotkeys, which was pretty funny. So here I'm just swinging with Janemba as well, because I want to be applying the 25k crit dual attack, and here he has his second dormant potential, which he uses the energy that he untapped from his leader for, and that's absolutely fine by me. I've already applied a bunch of pressure this turn. I forced out his awaken during my turn, which is great, and I'm still gonna have another 30k crit attack because of the Senzu Bean that I opt to use here. So I put the Senzu Bean on the Janemba because it has dual attack, so it's effectively a 10k boost rather than a 5k if he were to try and combo out of both of the attacks. And this gives me a total of 3 energy to use the Majin Buu, which will give me even more defense for next turn, because if he chooses to attack my leader, he's then going to have to discard 2 cards from his hand. and I actually managed to crit the third dormant potential off of his life, which is great for me, because like I mentioned earlier, playing against green is just playing against their 4 dormant potentials, and their freezer counterplays as well. But because he doesn't have a unison down yet, he's not going to be dropping freezer on me, and I know that as soon as I've gone through all of his dormant potentials, I can just win the game the next turn. Here I end up not dropping down the Majin Buu, because the Majin Buu is kind of seen as a more of an aggressive card, whereas the Lord Slug is more of a defensive card. The Majin Buu technically offers defense with the discard 2 threat on if you attack my leader, but the Lord Slug is just a straight blocker, so it's like guaranteed to stop an attack, whereas the Majin Buu is only hindering them if they choose to attack my leader, whereas the Lord Slug just completely stops it. And also, if I can if I can have his 6-drop kill my 9-drop Lord Slug, then I can use my 2-drop to go into a second copy of the 9-drop Lord Slug, because I have 2 energy open, so I can definitely do that. So here he actually manages to play down his Unison, and then he also is able to tap 2 and go up into his 6-drop Gotenks. So that's a little bit troubling for me, but like I mentioned earlier, I'm on 4 life, I've got 2 blockers out, and I can potentially go into a second copy of the 9-drop Lord Slug if he kills my first copy. The only reason that he has to kill my first copy first is because it has unique. So here he chooses to kill my 9-drop Lord Slug with his Gotenks effect, and that will trigger my leader, so it gives me a draw, and it also triggers my 9-drop Lord Slug, so I kill his Gotenks, I rip out a card from his hand, and I minus 2 markers from his Unison, and he misplayed, he didn't read the Lord Slug, and he left his Unison on 2 markers and then played the Gotenks rather than going up into using the +2 to go up to 4 markers. So he just scoops it up because he knows that he's lost there. He loses so much advantage in that play that it's not worth him playing any longer. So I take the first game against the Green Gotenks, which is nice. And we're going right into the second game. Here my mulligan is looking pretty awful. I do have the 1-drop Towa, which is nice, and I do have the Majin Buu, which is obviously nice, but drawing into 2 9-drop Lord Slugs is awful, because if the third copy is in my life, then I'm not going to have any targets to bring out with my 2-drop Lord Slug, and my defense is kind of crumbling if I have that happen to me. So I'm hoping that the third copy of the Lord Slug is in my deck, and I haven't even drawn into a 2-drop Lord Slug yet, so my defense is really not that great. But here, when I searched for the Dark Dragon Balls, I checked, and there was the 1 copy of the 9-drop Lord Slug still left in my deck, which was great. And here I'm using the Dark Dragon Balls to search for my freezer, because I'm thinking if he drops a Goku turn 2, or if he drops his Unison turn 2, I can start discarding cards from his hand pretty quickly with that freezer. And it will also be energy efficient, because I can then tap 1 for the freezer next turn and tap 1 for the Towa next turn, and those are my only 2 1 energy plays in hand, so I will be using my 2 energy next turn the most efficiently that I can. Here, these turns have been pretty simple so far, just swinging at the leader with our leader to gain some advantage, and then pretty much passing. He hasn't seen his Unison, he hasn't seen his Goku, he's got pretty much nothing in hand, is what I've learned from that turn 2 pass. Because if he had the Goku, he'd play it and search a load, if he had the Unison, he'd play it and awaken, and if he had the 6-drop Gotenks and his pieces to fuse with, then he would have probably played that and applied some pressure onto me as well. So from that pass I can gauge that he didn't have any of those plays. He has been charging a lot of his pieces, so I'm assuming that he has multiple copies of the pieces in hand and probably no 6-drop Gotenks. So I'm thinking as soon as he draws that 6-drop Gotenks, I'm going to have to watch out, because he can probably apply quite a bit of pressure to me. Because I'm thinking if he has multiple copies of the pieces, he will probably be saving some in hand for when he has the Gotenks. And so here, he fuses and goes into his Gotenks Grim Reaper. So I'm assuming he drew that off of the top or off of the leader swing. And so he just fuses into his Gotenks, and that kills my Towa. He chooses wisely not to kill the Lord Slug. because the Lord Slug would obviously bring out my 9-drop. The reason that I didn't go into the second copy of Towa and the freezer last turn was because he had no cards on board, so him actually bricking kind of helped him in a way, because it meant that he didn't have to start dropping cards for my freezer. If he'd got the Gokul or got his Unison down, I would have been able to apply a lot more pressure onto him. Now this hand is not, this hand is very interesting to look for a charge target, because I have 2 copies of the Majin Buu and I have the Lord Slug and Freezer in hand. I'm thinking the Freezer is going to be pretty useless, because it's likely that I'll draw another copy of it over the course of the game, and currently he's just going to be dropping a bunch of Grim Reapers. It's only going to be useful if he drops a Gokul or a Zarbon or something of that sort. And I'm thinking that I'll probably draw into another copy of the Freezer by that point. I think also this game is the only game in the tournament where I didn't see a blue card until after turn 3. So I didn't actually have a blue energy down at this point, and my targets off of the top 7 search were not that great either. My best target was a Freezer Dark Infestation, which you generally want to be bringing out from the Surprise Attack Freezer chain with the 1-star ball, and not using it for the Majin Buu effect. But it's not too bad. I'm able to still apply quite a lot of pressure to him, and I have quite a few attacks still to come, and I'm getting some nice draws because I'm swinging with my leader and I've got my Awaken available. I also have 3 super combos, which is going to be really nice if I need to go defensive, but I could also theoretically start using it to go offensively here. And so here he drops 1 copy of Dormant Potential. I really don't think he needed to use Dormant Potential here. I think something that's really important in a green deck is understanding when you need to use Dormant Potential and when you don't. And I think this is a situation where he really didn't need to play one, because I only have a few attacks coming in this turn and he was on 6 life. If he'd only comboed out of my double strike swing, which he could have easily done so with only 2 cards or 1 super combo, then he would have been sat happy at 4 life and been able to awaken and kept a Dormant Potential in hand. So here he was debating about killing my Lord Slug, and he chooses to kill it, and that obviously lets me bring out my 9-drop Lord Slug. I think this was again a slight misplay from him, because it also gives me a draw off my leader, because my Zeno character was killed by a card effect, and I don't think he needed to kill that Lord Slug quite yet. I think he could have just left it on board and locked me out of playing more copies of it because of the unique tag. And here I opt to swing with the Majin Buu. I would have loved to swing with the Dark Infestation Freezer, because I wanted to apply double strike pressure to him whilst he's on 5 life, but I want the Majin Buu in rest mode, because that way if he swings at my leader he has to drop 2 cards from his hand, and I value that a lot higher than just swinging for double strike. And then obviously because he's dropped Dormant Potential I can't swing anymore that turn, so I decide to just end my turn. Generally if they drop Dormant Potential I want to be swinging twice with some pretty hefty swings to either force them to combo out a lot or force them to take the damage, and then you just want to set up some defensive plays like the Lord Slug or the Majin Buu, which is exactly what I've done here, so this is fine. I have a 13 card hand to his 8, which I'm also very happy with. So it looks like I'm going to be in a good situation for the rest of this game. He plays down a copy of Kukunsa to make the most of his energy before he awakens, so he gets to draw a card from Awaken and draw a card from Kukunsa. And then I think he'll also use the burst effect of his Kukunsa to gain 16,000 power and double strike this turn, making it a 20k double strike. I'm honestly okay with that play, because if he doesn't kill my Lord Slug, I'm able to block I'm able to block the attack from the Kukunsa and safely block a second attack with it. So here I just choose to block one of the Gotenks swings on my Majin Buu with the Lord Slug, and it's 25 on 25, so I think I'm going to have to combo 5k into this to combo out. But he actually opts to super combo on the attack once he knows that I'm blocking, and his reasoning for that is obviously he wants to be killing my Lord Slug through battle, and this is one of the bigger attacks that he's going to be sending into it. So he's just trying to combo up into it to try and kill it, not through card effect, so it doesn't trigger the second effect of my Lord Slug. I'm actually fine with this. Something to note about Dragon Ball in particular as a card game is that when you're comboing, if you have more cards in hand than your opponent, you're very happy to go even on combo because they'll hit 0 cards in hand faster than you will, and so that obviously means that you would be in a much better position if you were to combo evenly throughout the entirety rest of the game. So if you're on a higher hand size than your opponent, comboing evenly and trading card for card in combo power is absolutely fine, because you're going to end up in a much better position than they are, because you have more cards to play. And so here he's comboing up a bunch into this attack, and I'm happy to just combo 2 super combos into it to save my Lord Slug. And luckily for me, because I had 4 super combos in my hand by the time it was his turn, I've maintained my hand advantage, because I'm on 12 cards in hand and he's only on 8. And he's actually ended up wasting quite a lot of cards trying to kill this Lord Slug, and he's gotten nowhere with it. He's thrown a Jiro super combo into it and a Paragus super combo into it, and now he's throwing a Paragus super combo on the leader swing to try and kill my Majin Buu. And I'm kind of thinking, I was considering actually letting the Majin Buu die here, because I was thinking I have another copy of the Majin Buu in hand, and it would be good to make use of the on-play auto, because obviously it brings out a card from the deck for free, which is really strong. But I was also thinking it's quite a heavy energy investment to commit this early into his turn, because I don't want to necessarily force myself to tap 3 next turn just to bring out the Majin Buu. And I want to see what he does with his 4 open energy first. So here he evolves into the Gotenks, and he chooses to kill my Lord Slug, which I think was a pretty big misplay from him. The Lord Slug wasn't posing any threat to him because it was already in rest mode. So I don't see why he felt the need to kill that. And all it did was trigger my leader effect to draw a card and trigger my Lord Slug effect to kill a bunch of his cards back. So I don't really understand why he felt the need to kill the Lord Slug there. It had already used both of its blocks, so it was completely useless until my next turn, and he would have been much better killing off the Freezer and just trying to pressure my leader, I think, with his Kukunsa and his double strike Gotenks that he played. But he ended up doing that anyway, and so I can just kill his Gotenks right back before it even gets to swing. And here he uses the burst 2 effect of his Kukunsa to swing 20k at my Majin Buu. And here I'm just comboing out because I'm thinking if I can keep a bunch of battle cards on the board, it's pretty likely that I can kill him next turn. And I saw that he bursted another copy of Dormant Potential off of the Kukunsa burst, so I know that he's only got 2 potential copies left in his deck or hand. So it's pretty likely that if he doesn't have a copy in hand, then I'm going to be able to kill him this turn. Here I draw into a Senzu Bean, and I immediately charge that because I want the blue energy open in case I draw into another copy of Senzu Bean later in the turn, or if I draw into, obviously multiple copies would be ideal, but 1 copy is fine. Here I drop down Lord Slug because I'm thinking it will gain me some nice advantage. Either I'm going to be killing his Unison or killing his battle card, and either way I'm gaining +1 in card advantage, and so I'm pretty happy with that. I would have loved to play down my 2-drop Freezer and attack into the Kukunsa to force him to discard, but I believe the Kukunsa maintains its power boost throughout the opponent's turn as well as during my turn, so I wouldn't have been able to do that, sadly. And then here on the leader swing, I managed to draw into a surprise attack Freezer, which would have been perfect to have before I played down the Lord Slug, because I would have been able to free play it when his Kukunsa got KO'd. So here I'm just swinging down his leader. I don't feel the need to combo yet because I'm just getting rid of his cards in hand to see how much I'll have to combo in the finisher swings, because I still can play a copy of Man on the Mission down in this turn, and I can still play down Style Xeno this turn as well. So I know that I'm not going to have to go in for the kill quite yet. He uses Shocking Death Ball to negate the double strike swing and takes himself down to 1 life over the course of those attacks. So I just overwhelm into my Man on a Mission, see if he has a response as well, because in case he has the Freezer Charismatic Villain, because he has his Unison in play here, he could have had the Freezer Charismatic Villain there. and I checked if he has a response, and he just conceded. He knew that he'd lost once I dropped the man on a mission there. And also I would have been able to use the freezer effect on my board to rip a random card out of his hand. So I definitely was in a really good winning position here. And if I didn't use the freezer effect, I could have just dropped the Cell Zeno anyway. So I was definitely all set to win this game, even if he did have the freezer counterplay. So that is the final best of 3 match of my locals tournament that I did last week with the Ultimate Towa deck. I actually ended up winning this tournament, as you can see if you've seen all of the other best of 3 matches that I played. I actually managed to 2-0 all of my opponents with this deck, so I'm pretty proud of that. It was a really fun experience, and I've been really enjoying this deck overall. I'm actually planning to build it with the physical cards over the course of this lockdown. And once we get out of lockdown, I'll actually be trying to play this deck in person a little bit, just because it's a really fun deck and I really enjoyed making it. So shout out to the guy who suggested it. Thank you very much. I'm definitely going to be playing this deck a lot in person now, and I'm actually going to try and make some changes, make it more aggressive. I'm thinking of toying about with 4 copies of the TP Towa that comes out in set 13, because it fills up the drop area quite nicely, and I'm thinking of toying around with a small Bardock, the Overarm Bardock that draws 2 and discards 1. Also with the Beerus that plays itself when discarded, and the Bell mod that free plays itself by killing off 3 of your battle cards. I'm thinking of toying around with a small engine similar to that for more accessible Cell Zeno plays, and for just more aggression and making more use of the TP Towa to bring out Dark Broly's and to fill up the drop. So I think that that could be a pretty interesting build, and I'll definitely be trying that out once we start up tournaments in person again. And also a slightly more just green focused build, maybe with like a green unison or 2 and the freezer counterplay in there. So definitely stay tuned if you are interested in any of those cool ideas that I've been having. I'll try and do some deck profiles on them whenever I get around to making those decks. Also, if anyone who suggested ideas for the 50 subscriber kind of celebration video that I did, apologies, I'm getting round to the other suggestions. It's just taking me a little bit of time because of the current lockdown situation, and also because of my exams coming up. So I'm a bit confined when it comes to time at the moment, so I don't have a lot of free time, but I will get around to all of the suggestions as soon as I can. Also, my local tournaments have, I think people who have been organising them have been taking breaks recently, so a lot of them haven't actually been able to take place, so apologies for that. But I will get around to all of your suggestions. If you feel like commenting some more suggestions, you can comment them on any of my videos really, but I'll have the link to the specific video that I originally suggested the idea on in the description. Also, check out the Discord server and the Facebook page and the Twitch streams in the description. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Definitely check out this deck. I'll have the deck profile in the description too, I guess. And have a good day.